going to start with this really quick questions because I've heard so many times in recent days people would discuss the same issue over and over again, the parallel between the European approach towards Eastern European countries and Eastern Partnership countries and the similar approach that the EU and NATO took with Turkey that resulted in basically failure to kind of get Turkey on board with integration inside the European Union. So a lot of people say that basically that's exactly what is going to happen with the Eastern Europe because you lack approach and clear messaging, and there is division even inside the EU what to do with all those Eastern European countries, especially now with Russia. Do you find those similarities, and do you think that it's really huge danger that it will happen the same as it was in Turkey a decade ago?
I think the major issue, there are parallels. I think there is a sense of expansion or enlargement fatigue within the European Union. NATO is a different story. I mean, I think there will be some opening to Montenegro anyway. There will be an invitation in Warsaw most likely. There has been questions about Georgia and Ukraine that seems to be remaining for now. I don't see any time in the near future that any invitation is going there. But that's less than interest, more about the geopolitical positions going on. With regards to the EU enlargement, there are parallels in terms of fatigue, but there are also significant differences. One is that it is immeasurably much more expensive to include Turkey as a part of European Union. Second, that if that ever happens, Turkey would end up, given the time frame, would end up being either the largest or the second largest country in terms of population. So that kind of changes the dynamic of the European Union. That's not necessarily the case with a lot of the other Eastern Partnership countries, at least for European Union. Economically, it's going to be a lot easier. Culturally, it's going to be a lot easier to observe. So there are significant differences. There are parallels in the sense that the publics in the European Union are not lost their enthusiasm, let me put it that way, of expanding the EU. They're not even enthusiastic about deepening the European
Union. There are a lot of talks that it was even a mistake to get on board Central European
nations. Now, even within the Central Europe, you also start having people of positions of Euroscepticism within Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, exactly. And the recent government is generally seen as Eurosceptic and all that kind of thing. So there is not only within the Western Europe, but also within Eastern and Central Europe that there is this fatigue about the public. And by and large, these are democratic governments which think about their second elections. So they need to take into account, and the international environment provides a good excuse for delaying this sort of integration with the Eastern Partnership countries. And in the case of Turkey, I think it is also a game of who would blink first. I think both parties know that this is not going to go anywhere, but they don't want to be the first one who basically get up from the table. Partly it's a negotiation thing. If you force the other parties to say, okay, you know what, maybe this doesn't work, then you can ask, okay, you're not giving us, permanent, full membership to the European Union. Then we want this and this. So you have a better chance of bargaining.
But
that's the case also.
Do you agree with the reasoning that EU provides? Like, look, honey, it's not you, it's me, and my internal problems. And
I mean, there is a truth to that, but there's also, I mean, it's a mutually reinforcing position. There is internal problems within the EU itself is stretched with the economic crisis. When things are going fine, when people are rich and happy and the economy is growing, it's okay to talk about brotherhood and the European values and expanding that. But when it starts hitting home in terms of economy, and when your economies are in recession, when you have right-wing populist parties riding on that, dissatisfaction. It's very hard to be able to go and say that, okay, we want to spend more money. That's not going to happen. And on the other side, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know at least in the case of Turkey, that, but also probably in the case of at least some actors in the Eastern Partnership, I'm not sure they're very keen on being a part of a system that is based on accountability, on transparency, on power sharing. The same story goes for Ukraine. The same story goes for Georgia, Moldova.
That's a very great point, because there are a lot of parallels right now between Turkey and Russia, just because, or other Central European countries that are trying to adopt this very weird, some people call it the Putin strategy, when you kind of use already existing democratic structures, but then exploit them by building something that is autocratic and not transparent. So it is happening partially, especially as the primarily case in Turkey, in Hungary, and other countries. Do you think that why people find it very fascinating to exploit kind of the same strategy? Because, it doesn't make any sense logically. If you don't like democracy, why not, kill it and proceed whatever you want to build instead?
Why not use it? If it works for you and for your particular purposes, why not play that card and still maintain your power? I mean, the cost, think about it, even the most autocratic regimes in the world, think about North Korea, calling themselves People's Republic, or Iran, talking about a real Islamic democracy. With the exception of few sheikhdoms in the Gulf, everyone else claims to be a democrat because that's the zeitgeist. That's how it goes now. It doesn't cost you anything to claim to be a democrat, while on the background you can do all sorts of nasty things. But the cost of at least public image, with regards to especially with the Western institutions, of declaring openly that you don't really like this, is high. Why would you do that when you don't need to do that? The whole debate about because when you look at WTO, when you look at IMF, when you look at various other international institutions, at least they have on paper these requirements about global good governance, about democratization, etc., etc. You can pay lip service to that while doing what you're doing, and minimizing the sort of the criticism coming from the West. And it also works for several of the Western governments, so they could at least continue to ignore that particular problem, things that they don't want to deal with. The whole same story. One of the commenters today said it, we have hard time defining hybrid warfare, because if we define hybrid warfare, we need to do something about it. So if you start calling these other countries, oh no, you're not real democratic, then you have harder time of explaining why are you working with them, why are you providing financial aid to them, all that kind of thing. So it is a problem. And so it's a win-win situation for the autocrats, as well as some of the Western leaders who are not willing to stand up for their own values.